You are standing in a dense green forest. You are hungry. Your stomach aches with a dull, hollow pain. Everything around you looks like food. Leaves and berries and roots surround you in every direction. Some of these will give you energy to survive the week. Some of these will kill you before the sun goes down. How do you choose? For 99% of human history, this was not a hypothetical thought experiment. This was the absolute reality of everyday survival. This was your life for roughly 300,000 years. Today, you buy your food in a brightly lit supermarket. You read printed labels and expiration dates. You trust the packaging and the system that produced it. But your ancestors did not have a system of printed labels. A single mistake in the wild meant a terrifying and agonizing death. So how did they know? How did ancient humans figure out what to eat without dying in the process? The most common myth is that it was simply random trial and error. You might picture a group of early humans pointing at a bush. One eats a berry and dies. The others take notes and learn to avoid it. But human survival was not a reckless game of biological roulette. Your ancestors were incredibly intelligent. They were meticulous. They were careful scientists of the natural world. They used a very specific and slow method to test unknown food. Modern survival instructors call this the Universal Edibility Test. It was a calculated process that took days to complete. It started with your senses. You find a new plant. You do not just put it in your mouth. You look at it carefully. You crush a leaf. You smell it. Does it smell like bitter almonds? That is a biological warning sign. That is the smell of cyanide. Many deadly plants carry chemical warning signs that your nose is evolved to detect. If it smells safe, you move to the skin. You rub the crushed plant on the inside of your bare wrist. You wait. You wait for 8 hours. You watch the skin closely. Does it turn red or burn or etch? If it does, you throw the plant away immediately. You wash your hands in the river. You do not eat it. If your skin is perfectly fine, you move to the mouth. You touch a tiny piece of the plant to your lips. You wait again. 3 long minutes. Do your lips tingle? Do they go numb? The numbness is a massive biological red flag that indicates potent neurotoxins. If your lips are fine, you put a small piece on your tongue. You do not chew. You hold it there for 15 minutes. You wait for your body to react. You listen to your nervous system. If your tongue feels normal, you chew the piece. You still do not swallow. You hold the chewed pulp in your mouth for another 15 minutes. If it tastes terribly bitter or soapy, you spit it out. Extreme bitterness in the wild is almost always the taste of toxic alkaloids. Alkaloids are deadly chemical compounds designed by plants to kill animals that try to eat them. If it passes the chew test, you finally swallow that tiny bite. Only that one single bite. Then you wait for 8 long hours. You wait to see if you get sick. You wait to see if your vision blurs or your stomach cramps. If you survive those 8 hours without illness, you eat a slightly larger handful. You wait another 8 hours. Only after this grueling and terrifying process would a plant be considered safe for the tribe. This was how the very first discoveries were made in the deep past. But your ancestors did not have to do this every single time they felt hungry. They relied heavily on observation. They watched the animals around them. They watched the monkeys. They watched the birds. They watched the bears foraging in the brush. Mammals have digestive systems very similar to our own. If a baboon ate a fruit and survived, it was a generally good sign. But it was not a perfect guarantee. Birds, for example, can eat certain berries that are highly toxic to humans. Your ancestors knew the subtle differences. They knew exactly which animal diets overlapped with their own specific biology. But the most powerful tool your ancestors had was not the edibility test. It was not animal observation. It was each other. It was culture. Human beings possess a superpower that no other animal has in the exact same way. We have complex spoken language. We have intricate storytelling. An ancient human did not need to test every single plant because their grandmother already knew. And her grandmother knew before her. This vital knowledge was hard-coded into the songs and the stories and the daily conversations of the tribe. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee spent years living with the Jokonsi Sand people in the Kalahari Desert. He went there to understand how ancient hunter-gatherers might have survived. What he found completely shattered modern scientific assumptions about primitive life. The Sand people did not struggle endlessly to find food. They possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of their hostile environment. They could instantly identify and safely utilize over 100 different wild plant species. They knew exactly when a plant was ripe and when it was poisonous. They did not guess. They knew. And this brings us to another brilliant strategy your ancestors used to conquer the natural world. They did not just find safe food. They took toxic food and actively engineered it to become safe. Plants generally do not want to be eaten. They cannot run away from predators, so they fight back with complex chemistry. Many of the most calorie-dense foods in the wild are packed with deadly natural toxins. But ancient humans figured out how to hack the chemical defenses of nature. Consider the mongongo nut. It is a massive staple food in the Kalahari region. It is highly nutritious, but it is surrounded by a toxic and incredibly difficult shell. The Sand people knew exactly how to roast it to break down the poisonous defenses. They used fire as a powerful chemical tool. We have concrete archaeological proof of this stretching back incredibly far in human history. At an archaeological site called Gesher Benat Yaakov in modern-day Israel, researchers found something astonishing. They discovered the remains of controlled campfires dating back 7,000 to 80,000 years. Around these ancient fires were the remains of nuts and seeds and roots. Many of these specific plants are naturally toxic to humans, but the early humans living there were deliberately roasting them. They were using extreme heat to destroy the toxins inside the cells. They were cooking to survive. Cooking changed absolutely everything for our species. It unlocked vast amounts of calories that were previously locked behind biological walls of poison. It allowed our brains to grow exponentially larger. It essentially made us human. They also knew exactly how to use toxic plants to heal their bodies. The forest was not just a grocery store for calories, it was a complex pharmacy. In 2012, a researcher named Dr. Karen Hardy analyzed the dental plaque of ancient Neanderthals found in El Sidron cave in northern Spain. A dental calculus traps tiny microscopic particles of food and plant matter over a lifetime. By looking at these tiny microscopic fossils, she discovered something incredible. These Neanderthals living over 40,000 years ago had clear traces of yarrow and chamomile trapped in their teeth. These specific plants have virtually no nutritional value. They are intensely bitter. You do not eat them for calories. You eat them strictly for medicine. Yarrow is a powerful, natural astringent that helps stop bleeding wounds. A chamomile is a potent anti-inflammatory compound. These ancient humans were actively self-medicating. They deeply understood the medicinal properties of the wild world around them. So let us reconstruct a normal day in the deep past. Let us put you back there right now. You are a young child walking with your family group through a lush valley. The afternoon sun is hot on your bare back. You reach out your hand to grab a cluster of bright, inviting berries from a low green bush. Immediately, an older member of the tribe swats your hand away. They do not just tell you no. They sit you down in the dirt. They point directly at the jagged shape of the leaves. They show you the tiny, dangerous hairs on the stem. They tell you a vivid story about a spirit who ate those berries and fell into a dark sleep they never woke from. You never touch that specific bush again. But then the elder leads you to a patch of dull, ugly roots hidden in the soil. They show you exactly how to dig them up with a sharp stick. They show you how to smash them with a heavy rock and wash the pulp in the running river. They explain that washing the pulp carries the invisible poison away downstream. You learn that the beautiful bright berry is death and the ugly hidden root is life. This knowledge becomes a permanent part of your mind. You will teach it to your own children one day. This was the absolute pinnacle of human connection to the natural earth. But then came the massive counterintuitive twist, a massive biological and cultural shift that changed our brains and our bodies forever. Around 10,000 years ago, we completely invented agriculture. We stopped walking. We stopped foraging in the complex forests. We cleared the diverse landscapes and planted massive identical fields of just a few crops: wheat, barley, rice, corn. We domesticated the wild plants, but the plants also entirely domesticated us. Agriculture seemed like a massive and undeniable success. It allowed human populations to explode across the globe. It built massive cities and towering empires. It gave us writing and mathematics and modern technology. But it was a silent biological trap. By relying on only a handful of specific crops, we made ourselves incredibly vulnerable to disaster. If the seasonal rain failed, the wheat died. If the wheat died, everyone starved. Entire empires collapsed because they forgot how to eat from the wild. Ancient hunter-gatherers rarely experienced mass famine because their wild diet was so incredibly diverse. If one plant failed for the season, they had 100 others to choose from. The forest was an endless safety net. But much worse than the risk of famine was the massive forgetting. When we moved into walled cities and fenced farms, we severed our ancient connection to the wild library. We stopped telling the vital stories about the leaves and the roots. We stopped walking through the brush with our grandparents. The encyclopedic biological knowledge that kept our ancestors alive for 300,000 years vanished in just a few dozen generations. We traded an entire natural world for a few fragile fields of grain. We gained the modern world, but we lost the earth. Which brings us right back to your daily life today. You walk down the busy street in your modern concrete city. You pass through manicured parks and overgrown empty lots. You see random patches of green growing through the rough cracks in the sidewalk concrete. To you, it is just a meaningless green blur. It is just weeds. You walk through the world completely blind to the millions of years of survival data growing right at your feet. You do not know what will instantly heal you. You do not know what will quickly kill you. You are totally and helplessly dependent on the massive invisible machine of modern agriculture to keep your body alive. But deep down in the silent coding of your DNA, the ancient instincts are still sitting there. The exact same human brain that mapped the Kalahari and decoded the deadly toxins of the Ice Age is sitting inside your skull right now. You are standing in a dense green forest.